All right, welcome to our third and final vodcast for the consciousness unit. Today we're going to talk about a couple of altered states of consciousness. So remember, in the very beginning of the unit, I said the consciousness is a continuum, right? You're fully awake, you're daydreaming, you're under hypnosis, you're meditating, you're in a drug-induced state, you're sleeping, you are in a coma, you're totally unconscious, right? So there are wide variations of consciousness, which of course is your awareness of your situation. So you can actually self-alter your consciousness, right? Hypnosis and drugs are two ways that you can self-induce an altered state. You actually bring it on by choice. Okay. So, hypnosis. Hypnosis. Why do people want to be hypnotized, right? It seems kind of scary. Some people are really excited about, others not so much, right? And really what hypnosis is it's a deep state of relaxation and the mind is incredibly focused. There's no magic involved. Yes, hypnosis does exist in psychology. We find that it is possible. It does work. People do fake it, but it can happen, okay? So a couple of things that are true and not true. Some myths, right? Hypnosis cannot force you to act against your will. So literally it cannot force you to do something that you would never do. It might force you to do something that you would find embarrassing normally because you're not really fully aware of it, but you would never do something that you find morally objectionable. So it can't force you to punch someone that you would never do or to, cheat on your husband or wife or something like that, right? And what they found out is that if they ask subjects who are hypnotized to stick their hands in a vat of acid, they'll do it, right? They'll stick their hands in this fake acid. It's not really acid, but they say, oh, stick your hands in this vat of acid. So the hypnotized people stick their hands in it, and they say, okay, throw it on the experimenter, and they throw it on them, right? Well, guess what? Even people who are not hypnotized will do the exact same thing. If someone in a white lab coat tells them to stick their hands in a vat of acid and throw it on the other experimenter, they're going to do it. So it's not about hypnosis making you do things you don't want to do. It's about the situation and the power of someone in charge telling you what to do. Hypnosis cannot make you recall events that you've completely forgotten. So it can't bring out repressed childhood memories, right? All hypnosis really does is the hypnotist also often creates false memories by asking you questions in a certain way. Remember, that's false memories, Elizabeth Loftus, the crashed versus smashed, right? All the way back to the memory chapter. Hypnosis cannot cure addictions. So while you see in the facts section that hypnosis is actually it can be very therapeutic, in terms of it can help with obesity, it can help a little bit with smoking, it can help with anxiety or other things. It doesn't really help with addictions like drug and alcohol. Okay, smoking is kind of hit or miss. But with things that are more physiological, it means body addictions like cocaine and those things, it's not really enough. You can't really take your mind power and kind of force it out of it. Okay, but it can be therapeutic, right? Something called a post-hypnotic suggestion. It's something that you believe you will do when you wake up. So when you wake up, you will not eat junk food anymore. That's a post-hypnotic suggestion, something that you will follow when you get up, okay? Anyone can experience hypnosis. So it's not true that only certain people. If you're open to it, it can happen. And the last is hypnosis can actually stop pain. It's very interesting. They actually have hypnotized people who can't get anesthesia before, and they're able to undergo surgeries, right, without any anesthetic because hypnosis can help separate you from your pain. People can become hypnotized for childbirth and various other things. So how does hypnosis work? There's two theories. The first theory is basically just that people are not faking it, but they want to be a good hypnotized subject, and they feel like they should be hypnotized, so they basically allow themselves to be taken over by the situation and get caught up in it and act like they just kind of go along with what the hypnotist says and trust him and do whatever he says, and then all of a sudden they kind of are hypnotized. The other theory is better explained by the pain idea of things, because what they say is that people under hypnosis they actually disassociate. So basically they take their brain and they separate it, their consciousness, they separate it into two. Someone who knows what they're doing and someone who doesn't know. Okay, two or more streams going on. And literally what it means is that the person has a hidden observer in the back of their mind that knows what's going on but doesn't really act on it. And then they have the front person who's kind of just going along with the hypnosis. And one of the ways that they explain this is something called the ice bath experiment. So they can get people who are hypnotized to stick their hands in an ice bath for extremely long periods of time, and they don't feel any pain. And it's not that they don't think they feel any pain, but actually the part of them that feels pain is that hidden observer. So it's kind of hidden away. It feels the pain, but the person in front, the person who's there, that part of them, that dissociation, that front part doesn't really realize that they're in pain. So it's called the dissociation theory because it's the person has become split. They have a hidden side and an upfront side. Okay, drugs. All right, I'm going to do a short overview of drugs. I know you've learned about them a lot, but let's relate them to psychology. So Our brain's actually usually protected by a layer of capillaries called the blood-brain barrier, okay? So basically what it does is it prevents all these chemicals from getting inside your brain. That's why, you know, when you have viruses, you get the flu or whatever, it doesn't go into your brain. If it does, it can cause huge problems. Well, drugs are small enough to actually pass through this blood-brain barrier. Those are called psychoactive drugs, okay? A lot of times, like we've done now for like prescription drugs, especially like antidepressants and stuff, those can get through the blood-brain barrier. They're specially formulated. But drugs like psychoactive drugs, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana, whatever, they get past the blood-brain barrier and affect your brain. Okay, drugs are either agonists, so they increase what happens to neurotransmitters. They're antagonists, they stop, or they're reuptake inhibitors. Okay, if a drug is used often, you develop a tolerance for it, right? So, and then you need more and more and more to feel the same effect of the drug, right? So what you start off normally, maybe just using a couple of times or a little bit. Then by the end, you have to use a lot. This woman uses methamphetamine. This happens to her face. Very scary, right? And when you stop using the drug, you go through withdrawal. And depending on the drug you're on, withdrawal can be very intense or not so intense. And sometimes withdrawal is so intense that if you withdraw on your own without weaning off of it, you can actually die. Okay, so stimulants speed up your body's process. One of the most common stimulants is caffeine, right? We think of, you know, everyone likes caffeine, especially the more powerful ones like cocaine, give you these feelings of invincibility, like you can do anything, like you're on top of the world. Cocaine is a dopamine reuptake inhibitor, right? So if you see right here, it blocks the dopamine from being reuptake, right? So it just sits in the synapse and sends over and over and over again. Depressants, right? They slow down the body. Alcohol is a good example of one. Alcohol is involved in 60% of all crimes and 70% of sexually related crimes. Okay, so alcohol is a huge drug that's hugely abused in our society. Then also barbiturates and tranquilizers are types of depressants, right? So, you know, those are depressant categories. Okay, hallucinogens. They tend to be psychedelics, right? They cause changes in your perception of reality. LSD, which is acid, peyote, which is used a lot of times in Native American ceremonies, mushrooms, marijuana. Marijuana is actually a hallucinogen. I know a lot of times we don't think about that, right? So this is what acid looks like, okay? They're little pills. That's peyote, okay? Mushrooms, marijuana, right? Okay, so all of these are hallucinogens, okay? They cause a change in the perception of reality. And they also have a reverse tolerance effect. Okay, opiates. Opiates, they have depressive and hallucinogenic qualities. They're agonists for endorphins, so they actually cause more endorphins to be produced in your body. They're derived from the poppy plant, okay? And they're types of opiates are morphine, heroin, methadone, and codeine. They used to use morphine and codeine a lot. They still do sometimes for painkillers because they help with endorphins, which kills pain. The only problem with this is that they're highly addictive, right? And sometimes when people want to get off heroin, they actually take methadone. So methadone is a type of opiate that helps people get off heroin, but then they become addicted to methadone, but methadone is less severe. So they actually used to have these clinics called methadone clinics where they actually would take people off heroin and put them on methadone. Okay, all of these drugs cross the placental barrier, making them teratogens. That means that if you take heroin, methadone, codeine, morphine while you're pregnant, it will cross the placenta into and harm the baby. Okay, cocaine is also a teratogen. All right, alcohol is a teratogen. Right, so these drugs all go across the blood-brain barrier. I mean the placental barrier, and they impact your baby, and they can cause it to have different deformities or to be addicted to drugs when they come out of the womb. That's all for now, AP Psychos, and remember, psychology is flippin' awesome. Oh yeah, and don't do drugs.